Greetings, brothers and sisters. I like it how there's just one guy in the Rolling Stones that dresses like a regular 73-year-old, 77-year-old man. It's this guy. I thought that was a great meme. Anyways, today's Monday, April 27th. This video's not going up till Wednesday. I'll probably gather all the new news on Tuesday. So I got a bunch of just quirky, funny things to start off with, and if we'll see where this. I might end up having to put them ahead of this part. I don't know. I don't know how it's all going to shake out. It's pouring rain outside. It's dark. I had to turn a light on. It's so dark out there. Anyways, let's go to this here. Okay, so this demonic fucker. Look at those fucking crazy ass eyes and that big ass face, man. What the hell is going on there? Like her head is much big. Like her head makes her look like she's 6'6" or something. Anyways, I realized when she walked by, I just want to go home. At the fake shooting thing that happened. I covered that already. I'm not going to show that clip again. But I forgot how weird she is, right? And how, she came across as so weird. The whispering, remember the whispering? She'd do that whispering. It was about when she was grieving for Charlie Kirk. It was so performative. But this was one of the weirder things that she did, right?
It's those little things where, again, he would walk through the door, drop his bags.
Remember this weird gaudy jewelry?
Daddy's home. Take his phone Friday night, Shabbat Shalom, throw it in the junk drawer, and it was just all us.
It was just so wonderful, like this fake crying. Remember? This is where she stuffed the snot rag in the couch, and I was following it the whole time. She had a few snot rags, and she stuffed them in the corner of the couch. She was sitting on the Fox and Friends. I think this is the one. It was one of these interviews when she was doing that bullshit book. Now, it's a weird thing for a Christian to celebrate Shabbat. And, there are lots of Jewish people who don't celebrate it anymore, right? But the Shabbat dinner, it's a weird thing for a Christian. And most Christians don't even do their own Christian. Like, in general, people don't do their religious practice. Like, I know this more than most people because of the Sajmarg system of meditation I do. There's a very, disciplined practice. And there's no punishment for not doing it. Nobody's going to yell at you. There's nobody's going to chastise. It's you losing out, right? It's you not, if you don't benefit from it, why would you do it? So you have to learn to benefit from it. You have to try it. You have to benefit from it. And then you have to just, like anything else. I mean, people do bad things for themselves, but have trouble creating good habits in their diets, in their choices of entertainment, things that hurt them. They're often attracted to. I mean, human beings are negatively attracted to things. And when you have a religious or spiritual practice, there's certain things you're supposed to do. Sometimes it's ritualistic. Sometimes it has value. Sometimes it doesn't. But, if you're going to call yourself a Christian, you're going to, supposed to do some of these things, right? And most Christians don't do it. Most religious people don't do what they're supposed to. Never mind, do something from fucking some old religion that has nothing to do with your religion. The Sabbath is supposed to be on Sunday for Christians, so you don't celebrate the Sabbath on Saturday, which Charlie Kirk was pushing. It's an idea that wasn't going to really, maybe a few people would do it. There's some people that look to Charlie Kirk for inspiration, but nobody likes this bitch, right? No one cares what she says. And so, it's a weird thing to say, these things, and it's so fake, it's so weird. It's like not believable. She's not a good actress. I mean, I don't know if she's really a good actress. Like this is an act. Like she's playing this part of somebody unlikable. Like she's supposed to be unliked. It's hard to say with these things, right? You never know whether this is the role she's supposed to play. But it seems like, they give you a role and they don't tell you what you're supposed to do, but they just know how you're going to come across, right? Like I'm sure people knew that she was going to be totally unliked. But she wasn't in on the fucking script and the gag. They just said, go be yourself, Erica. Right? And they give her things that she can say and things she can't say. But the way that she acts, she's just, I think she thinks this is, going to convince people and it's not. And now she's bitter because she thought she was going to be, the next Charlie Kirk. Like she was going to take over and it was going to go smoothly. And it hasn't gone that way, even though, I mean, she's a piece of shit that's in on his murder, right? But here,
bags, daddy's home. Take his phone Friday night, Shabbat Shalom, throw it in the junk drawer, and it was just all us. And that's what I always wanted to make so special for him, was coming home. I'd always say, baby, I don't care what time you get home. Home is here for you. Your food will never be cold. It might sit out for a little bit, but I'll reheat it. It's fine. And I just want to encourage spouses.
yeah, this is the time that she shoved a snot rag in the couch. There's like these places where she shoved it right between these things right here. You guys might remember if you see my video. It's pretty funny.
Don't get mad. It's so easy. Don't do it.
Don't do it. It's so easy. How often were you mad at him? People said they fought all the time because she's very difficult. You know, she's a certain personality type, and my ex was like this. You know, over devotional. And, you know, this Shabbat Shalom thing, Daddy's home, Shabbat Shalom, Friday night, you know, and like I said that there was a short video that I saw. Someone named the video. I can't remember what it is. But I started watching all these videos on YouTube that were like short movies. I did it for about a week, and they kept on popping up, and then I stopped doing it, and they disappeared, you know. They stopped recommending them. But I watched probably about 20 different, some of them I didn't get through to the end. But they were little mini movies I thought, you know, people had done. And there's one where a Jewish woman is having Shabbat dinner at her house, and she's maybe single but kind of older, and everyone's pushing her to get married. And she was having dinner, and one of the kids goes into her room and turns on her vibrating dildo. And she can't turn it off because they can't do shit like that in Shabbat. You know, they allow weird rules. So she goes out on the street and finds an African American guy and pays him to come crawl through the window while she's talking to her family and turn off her dildo vibrator. And he comes in. Of course, the family comes in and catches him. And then, you know, she pretends he's her boyfriend, some kind of shit like that. I can't remember the specifics. But her mom at the end of it said, you know, like played along and then said, and you got to remember to turn off your dildo and hide it like, on Shabbat. But it's a weird thing, Shabbat. Like, it's these ritualistic things. You know, Sajmarg meditation they do. The idea is that most of these rituals that people do have lost their meaning. They're for, you know, thousands of years ago. I mean, not just in Christian religion, but many of these ancient Indian religions. You know, people do these rituals and no one knows why they do them anymore. And they don't do them right. And they don't do them. There's no real benefit, right? But, you know, if you're going to sell Shabbat Shalom, if you're going to sell celebrating the Shabbat to Christians, you have to be better than Erica Kirk. She's just so fucking weird. Like, it's a big ask to, you know, ask these people to do more than they're already doing, right? You know, part of it's about turning off electricity and, you know, turning off all these devices and shit like that. But, you know, part of it is, I mean, the real part, it has to do with him being, you know, him being captured by Judaism, by Israel. And, you know, that whole thing. But, you know, Charlie Kirk could have sold this a little bit better than she did. But people weren't going to buy that book, and they weren't going to do this bullshit. You might have sold some copies. But she just comes off so weird and so intense and, like, just, you know, not believable, not inspirational. And that's her big thing, right? That's what she does. All right, so that's Erica J. Kirk. So I went to Twitter to look up for that video, the Shabbat Shalom video. And when I opened up Twitter, this was the first video. And I haven't watched it yet, but the caption is compelling.
When you read the manifesto of this shooter, ask yourselves, how different is the rhetoric from this almost assassin than what you read on social media and hear in various forums every single day?
So she's basically saying that this guy who's an assassin, that everyone thinks Trump's a piece of shit, which, you know, is almost all of us, right? Like 80% of the people. And think he's guilty of something with Epstein, at least partially. I mean, there's different levels, but most people think he's at least complicit, right? And so if you are, you know, all of these things that, you know, if you're a part of that, right, belief system, like somehow you're responsible or you're a part of you're like this guy, or, you know, this is what I'm saying. You know, is he going to go after the guns? Is he going to go after the people? Are they going to try to censor people? You know, anybody who talks shit about Trump, like these are the kind of things. There's always some goal. Usually they don't get it. Usually, you know, they don't get the guns. They don't, you know, but they go for them, right? I mean, this is what she's saying here.
When you read the manifesto of this shooter, ask yourselves, How different is the rhetoric from this almost assassin than what you read on social media and hear in various forums every single day? The answer, if you're being honest with yourself, is that there is no difference at all. Much of the manifesto of the would-be assassin is indistinguishable from the words that we hear daily from so many.
Yeah, well, maybe that's something you should be thinking about because you think everyone's a piece of shit and we're all wrong, or maybe Trump's a piece of shit and you're wrong, right? Because like, maybe you should do some self-reflecting because you guys think that the government's great and your party's great. Like what you guys say about the Democrats all the time, that's okay. Well, Trump talking about Bill Clinton being Epstein, even when he was defending himself. Yeah, not like Bill Clinton, right? But no, it's just when anything criticizes Trump, then that's you guys are terrorists. All right, so that's the first piece. Okay, so then this came up. Boy, she's starting to look like a hag, huh? All that plastic surgery. I mean, she's pregnant. She should be glowing. She's close to giving birth.
As I told many of you on Friday afternoon, I thought that would be my last time taking your questions until after my maternity leave. But given the attempted assassination of the president and, quote, top Trump administration officials, as the depraved shooter noted in his manifesto at the White House Correspondents Association dinner on Saturday evening, I felt it was prudent to be here today to answer your questions and inform the American people about how the administration is responding to yet another attempt on President Trump's life. Saturday was supposed to be a joyful evening, celebrating free speech and the First Amendment.
Okay, anybody could read this drivel. Like, you don't need to be there. Like this, anybody could read this drivel. In fact, we could all predict it. We could all ask everybody, what do you think Carolyn Levitt's going to say here? And we would all basically be able to predict like some level of it, most of it. The gist, we'd all be able to predict the gist.
With all of you, members of the press. Instead, the night was hijacked by a crazed anti-Trump individual who traveled across the country to assassinate the president and as many administration officials as possible.
Yeah, you really can't call that a real attempt. And she, what she want a fucking medal because she's coming in and doing her fucking job, which is, I mean, you don't need to be here. Go have your fucking demon child. we don't need you here. Okay, so I really didn't understand why people kept on sending this to me until my wife told me. They took JD Vance off the stage first. There's JD Vance there. They get him. And then they're like, hey, maybe if we get this fucking piece of shit over here. And they get Trump. They run back in and they come in and now they're just getting Trump. JD Vance is already safely. They chose to get Trump first. I mean, the whole thing. Apparently, Melania Trump, when she heard the noise, because she knew ahead of time what was going to happen, she went under the table, and which is weird. And one of my viewers said, just business as usual. Melania going under the table. All right, so there's that. Okay, so here's a longer version of that thing.
ABC's late night host Jimmy Kimmel for example, as the First Lady of the United States pointed out this morning, just 2 days prior to the shooting, ABC's late night host Jimmy Kimmel disgustingly called First Lady Melania Trump an expectant widow. Who in their right minds says a wife would be glowing over the potential murder of her beloved husband? And having experienced what I did with the First Lady on Saturday night, I can tell you that she was anything but that. This kind of rhetoric about the president, the First Lady, and his supporters is completely deranged, and it's unbelievable that the American people are consuming it night after night after night.
Yeah, like we're the fucked up ones.
Much of the manifesto of the would-be assassin is indistinguishable.
So, like we're the fucked up ones. Like maybe the president's a complete piece of shit. Like maybe, you throw that one out there, right? Like maybe the president's just a complete fucking warmongering, fucking puppeted Jeffrey Epstein motherfucking piece of shit grifter. Like maybe that, like have you ever let that roll around and bounce around that little fucking empty head of yours, right? Maybe it isn't us. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's, maybe it's 100% you. We're not perfect. We're all fucked up too. People are all fucked up. But you guys are like at a different level. You guys are next level. So I missed something here.
As I told many of you on Friday afternoon, I thought that would be my last time taking your questions until after my maternity leave. But given the attempted assassination of the president and, quote, top Trump administration officials, as the depraved shooter noted in his manifesto at the White House Correspondents Association dinner on Saturday evening, I felt it was prudent to be here today to answer.
Thank you for your service. Right? I don't know if that was worth the effort to go back and find the video. I'm just, I want to keep some of these things going. Well, here's another one.
Is disinformation and misinformation online. There will be bite-sized clips that will go viral to the point where there are Americans in this country that believe that what happened Saturday night was staged. How does this White House tackle that with social media companies out there, whether it's X, Facebook, Instagram? How do they work with these companies to make sure that doesn't get out of control?
What do you mean out of control? Who gives a shit? Like, every one of us in the country could believe it's staged, but no one's going to do shit. I was just talking to my wife about this. As long as people, this is something I've been talking about now for a long time, that as long as people have, their lifestyle, they'll do anything to keep their lifestyle. And they're not going to fucking rebel. People have these little gay little protests. But, until people's lifestyle gets taken away, you won't see people stand up. And the majority of people won't even stand up then. They'll march into their little fucking Agenda 31 homes and just, suck, like just taint licked and just, go in there and just fucking take it, right? That's just what's going to happen. The people have been pacified. There's idiocracy and there's pacification, the pacification of America. And, the reality is there's no fucking choice. What are you going to do? Like, the majority of people don't have a plan B. People don't have the ability to live out on their own, whatever it might be. And so, like, that's just how it is. And so people are not going to do anything. So, like, saying, what if it gets out of control? Well, the majority of people are going to, have already made up their mind what they're going to believe in this. There's very little wiggle room to change people's minds. And, people are now starting to turn on Trump. So, of course, once they turn on Trump, they go back and they go, oh, Ketchupgate, right? But, which was so obviously fake. And, most people know, and a lot of these people know it's fake anyhow. Like, a lot of these people, they know it's fake and they're just playing along because it's their job. And so, to say it's out of control. It's out of control.
Facebook, Instagram, how do they work with these companies to make sure that doesn't get out of control?
It's certainly a good question, Aisha. I don't have tangible answers for you on what we're doing with social media companies, if anything at all. What I will say is it's very important to us that we get the truth and the facts about this case and any case out there as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so you can convict the person and taint the jury. I don't know if you heard the thunder. It's like a fucking thunder outside. You're going to taint the jury and, like... It's just so fucking stupid, right? Like, you're cooked. Like, it doesn't matter because the Democrats are going to take over and they're going to do whatever the fuck they do if they start censoring. Like they did before Joe Biden. There's a pathway to censorship. But we'll see what happens. I've gone through so many iterations of this. I've been doing this since 2007 and, as a job since 2014. And my channel somehow survived all these things. Partly because I was always willing to adapt and, and just, whatever. But I don't know going forward how long I'll keep that up because it's just tiring. We'll see what's up. We'll see what's up with the Democrats take over. I don't know. But the whole thing's fucked. And, things are going to go south. And when things go south and they tighten up on the rules and they get all fucking checking your papers and shit like that and 15-minute cities or whatever the fuck's going to go on, there'll be... the control, they're not getting less controlling, right?
To dispel some of that crazy nonsense that you do see.
Crazy nonsense. It's just crazy nonsense.
Running rampant online. And I think the Department of Justice and the FBI thus far have done a good job of disseminating the truth and the facts about this alleged attempted assassin, the perpetrator in this case. And I understand he'll be arraigned in court very soon. You all see that. And the Department of Justice will be giving a briefing in an...
All right, holy fuck. So that's Caroline Leavitt coming back from maternity leave. So here it is. Like, this is the day 2 rollout. Same thing from Todd Blanche.
And many people in this room, if we're going to be honest about it, have done it as well. They're just as guilty as a lot of people on X. When you have reporters, when you have media just being overly critical and calling the president horrible names for no reason and without evidence, without proof, it shouldn't surprise.
Which names? Like cunt or like fucking turd or like Jabba the Hutt? Like which names are the ones that are horrible? Look at this fucking ghoul right here, right? Ghoul, that's another one. Like, we're all guilty of what? Guilty of fucking common sense and judgment and ability to discern, right? I mean, yeah, it's not nice, but Jesus Christ, the guy's murdering children. He's supporting a fucking, that would disaster. He's fucking wrecking the world. And, I'm more generous than most people saying that I believe it's God's plan for, the system to come down, and Trump's a perfect doofus instrument for that to happen, right? I mean, if he's doing God's work, he's doing God's work. But it's not like good God's work. It's not like he's doing it because he's a good, he's wants to do what God wants him to do. He thinks, whatever. He's doing it because he's being ordered by other demonic forces that are unknowingly doing God's work to bring a demonic system down. But anyways, let's get back to it.
And many people in this room, if we're going to be honest about it, have done it as well. They're just as guilty as a lot of people on X. When you have reporters, when you have media just being overly critical and calling the president horrible names for no reason and without evidence, without proof, it shouldn't
Jesus Christ, you fucking sack of shit.
surprise us that this type of rhetoric takes place. If you look at what it appears that this defendant had in his past, we're talking about somebody who is college educated, who has a job, who is otherwise living his life, and we'll find out more about him, as I expect, in the coming days and weeks.
When we roll out the profile we've created.
But he chose to do what he did, and so our threat environment is we are ready. I mean, I'm not going to go through what Director Patel just talked about with the way we responded, but this was something that we will always be prepared for, and it's sad that it has to happen, but it's not a new thing, unfortunately.
All right, fuck you guys for pretending that you've done nothing wrong on your side, and that there's no evidence, and there's no, release all the Epstein files, then, motherfucker. Release all the stuff that has to do with Trump, right? Don't go into Ghislaine Maxwell's, negotiation with her. This is the guy who did the negotiation with Ghislaine Maxwell to basically say, he knows, he's Trump's lawyer. He knows all the shit that Trump's done. Like, he's got to know, like Trump is telling him, this is what I've done, and he's protecting Trump. I mean, he's Trump's personal attorney, right? He knows all this shit. He knows where all the fucking bodies are buried. Okay, so it's Monday night. Still raining up a storm here. I turned on the news, and I'll get a clip of this tomorrow. I'll get a copy of it with my phone if I remember. But MSNBC was pushing this idea, and I'm sure there'll be other videos out there, that it's all these conspiracy theories and all this disinformation, is a problem. They're echoing what the White House is saying here. But before that ever happened, this video showed up. Let's watch this.
So I'm here in D.C. for the White House Correspondents' Dinner weekend. I'm here. I went to the WABJ, which is a Washington Association of Black Journalists, and now I'm going to Simone Sanders' party from MS Now. So I wanted to celebrate journalism and journalists, but I'm not going to that dinner. I don't think it's right sitting around sipping champagne and pretending things are normal with an administration or regime.
So you came into town, or were you not invited? Were you not invited, Don? Because, Don Lemons, I mean, all these people are really journalists, but Don Lemons is definitely the worst of the worst. And now, I mean, I need to tune into Don Lemon every once in a while because he's so fucking, just good, solid, stupid content. But so you showed up for a couple of parties?
That is really trying to kill journalism and jail journalists.
It'd be good if you thought things out before you talked, right? Like you have, I don't know. You're doing a minute thing here. You could have like what you're going to say there, and like not try to make it up as you go along. And you can always do another take, right? Like you don't have to use this one. Like you do a second take. You're just taping this on, somebody's taping this on their fucking phone. They can delete this one in a second and just do another one, right? This was not usable. You didn't know what the fuck you were going to say. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner to hobnob with other people and build influence and, hang out with journalists. And the president being there is like not even really a thing about it. But you missed that epic story, right? Okay, so this was sent to me. This is from, I think, Owen Stroyer, an Alex Jones former employee. I don't know, has he still got his thing? Breaking, the shooter at the White House Correspondents' Dinner was identified as 30-year-old Cole Allen from Torrance, California. Cole is a former driver for Savannah Guthrie. His wife is currently working as her assistant. There they are. Maybe they'll solve the kidnapping as well, right? Or maybe her mom is the mastermind behind this guy. Maybe she was the one that helped him with the plot. But then I asked AI Gemini here, as of April 2026, Cole Thomas Allen is a suspect identified in a shooting incident at the White House Correspondents Association dinner on April 25th, 2026. There is no confirmed connection between him and Today Show host Savannah Guthrie, despite rumors circulating online. That's what's great about the internet, because I would have not put those two together, but somebody thought of it, right? Somebody thought of, hey, what if we make this guy Savannah Guthrie's driver? And so there are going to be a lot of people believing it, and maybe it's true. We'll see.
We're going to introduce legislation that would authorize $400 million to be spent to secure to build the presidential ballroom. Underneath, there will be a lot of military stuff. There will be
military stuff, bunch of military stuff, cool things, grenades and shit, rocket launchers, whatever we get. Lots of soldiers, like them soldiers. Oh, there's a photo I got to show you guys. I think I have it over here.
a Secret Service annex, and we've paid for it by offsetting it with custom fees. But the estimate is $332 million.
Okay, so they're pushing the ballroom and, getting rid of freedom of speech. That's the takeaway from this thing. When originally I saw the manifesto, it didn't seem like a manifesto that supported their cause. But then as soon as they started to either spin it or I think this is the purpose. Because, I knew Trump wasn't going to be happy with the guy calling him a rapist and pedophile in the manifesto. And that going out and being published and talked about. And then the question asked to him on 60 Minutes. I know, that would be a hard sell, or they just fucking told him this is what we're doing. I don't think Trump would have went along with that, but whatever. But aside from that, it fits right with the narrative to say, all right, anybody talking shit about Trump, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, any of the other people, all the random people on the internet who, regularly diss Trump, and then all the mainstream media, this is leading to his assassination attempt. They're not going to get much ground with that, but it's a start for them. They're not going after guns, it looks like. I mean, there's still day 3. This is day 2 when they roll out the information. But, right now it's about the ballroom. It's about censorship, right? There's always an agenda. The agenda, is, they'll tell you the reason why they did it as soon as, day 2, day 3. Okay, so this, I almost lost this. I had it, and then I didn't know where I found it, or somebody sent it to me, and I was like, oh man, I don't have it. It wasn't on my toolbar. I couldn't find it, and then I found it. Okay, so apparently Trump just truthed to this. Stop talking about Epstein in all caps. So I hope he starts talking about this. I hope he starts giving his reasoning, and I hope that, this is a good place to start. What else you got to say about this, Donald? Stop talking about Epstein. Yeah. Donald's losing his shit. He's losing his shit, bro. This is also fake. I couldn't find that. It's True Social's post, and I'll elaborate on that the next day. Today's Tuesday. And I'll elaborate more on that because that's a real trip. True Social. I've never seen it on my phone before, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Okay, so my wife sent me this last night, and then I don't know if she sent me the second thing. Let me show you this first, and then
Come on! No, 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 no!
Now imagine there was an emergency outside the truck, an
Now imagine.
accident, something terrible on the ranch with a chainsaw. And I jump in this truck, but the truck, it won't shift into drive. Why? Because the cameras and sensors inside this cab won't let it shift, because it detects my eyes are big, there's a lot of emotion, there's some panic, and it doesn't feel that I'm fit to drive. Now that's not science fiction, that is happening because Ford just filed the patents.
Right. So, you know, again, sensationalizing this, but this is, they're spying on you inside your cars now. There's all these cameras and things. There's a lot more going on now in the latest iteration of vehicles. I mean, you know, the more computerized it all gets and things, a lot of these, you know, they're selling your data, not just your driving data, but they're listening into you, all those kind of things. Your car's become a cell phone. And, you know, data is everything at this point. So to go with this, I voted against this. Unfortunately, too many Republicans sided with Democrats and passed it. Anna Paulina Luna. I forget who she is. Doesn't matter. Congresswoman. Every new car in the U.S. will be required by law to have tech that puts constant surveillance on the driver by 2027. All AI in your car determine if you're sober and fit to drive, automatically turning off the vehicle if it determines you're in danger or on the road, these things. You know, there was a movie, I forget the name of the thing, Upgrade, I think it was. It's kind of a B movie, and the guy, some big tech giant like a Elon Musk person, targets this guy, and his car, his automatically driving car, is taken to like a bad neighborhood. Like he loses control of the car, right? He's not driving it. And so the car just locks him in and takes him and his wife. His wife is killed and he's paralyzed. And they install a chip, and the chip starts taking over his existence, right? This upgrade that he has. You know, some kind of AI chip. You know, but they have these automatic driving cars, and they can take you right to the police station or wherever it is. Take you, you know, drive you off into a bridge, and, you know, these types of things. But, you know, people just let it happen. Like, you know, and like I said, unless there's some, this is, my wife and I were talking about this when I was saying, you know, as long as people have their lifestyle, they'll just let this shit happen. We have no leverage. I talked about that 3 videos ago. Human beings do not have any leverage. The only leverage is the destruction of the system that God will mercifully and inevitably, you know, put into action. I mean, it's happening right now. Like the only thing that we have is idiocracy to, you know, stop this fucking from getting like totally out of hand. Right? Idiocracy is our best weapon. Distraction. Release all Epstein files. Let me see if I can find this other thing I saw. It's on my phone, I think. I don't know. Checkmate. You know, like with AI imagery now, it's just out of hand. You know, there's some guy, and I had the video, and I didn't send it to my wife or something to save it. But it was some guy, you know, that somebody cleaned up the thing that Trump tweeted out of the guy running down the hall. And, you know, he was running carrying a sign, and the sign disappears, and somebody pretended or you know, thought it was real or didn't care that it was fake and was making a big deal. Where'd the sign go? All this kind of shit, right? Like, not, you know, realizing that this was an AI generated video to try to, you know, clarify that horrible low-tech video that Trump tweeted out. You know, it's just a mess. I mean, the truth has been blurred, you know. And who gives a shit what the truth is, like, at this point? Like, in terms of facts and, you know, events, I mean, it's all just a mess. Like, it doesn't matter what the truth is. Like, the truth is that we suck, right? That humanity sucks. You know, and we're going in the wrong direction. Haters will say this is AI. That picture's always great with her. So I looked up this came in last night, and I didn't have a chance to put it in the video, but I'll drop it in today after the other one with him at the Wailing Wall. I checked out Trump's True Social page. Usually I get blocked from doing that. I don't know. But anyways, I wanted to see if that tweet was, where Trump said, that he wanted everyone to stop talking about Epstein. And it sounds like something he might say, but I'm like, why would this, whatever. It seemed kind of fake. So I got on True Social on my phone, which I've never done before, and I got to Trump's page. But immediately there's some thing that takes over the whole site, like an ad. Like it's like something you got to click out of. And it's some like really skanky dating site, like with looks like a porn star or something. And then there's like 3 games on top, games like video games. They're Trump video games or something. Somehow, like Trump's involved. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But it looked like it was a video game. And then they show one tweet from Trump, and then there's another ad for that skanky dating site, and another ad from Trump. Another tweet from Trump, and then a tweet from somebody else. I don't know why that's on there. And then more ads. Like every other tweet or truth, there's like fucking ads for this skanky site, and then ads for other like seedy shit, right? Like low level fucking just really crappy stuff. And I'm like, this is what True Social is? He turned this into a $2 billion company. That's another thing that I had said long before the election in 2020. I said Trump should get his own social media in case they kick him off, which they inevitably did. And like I said, if he had his own social media on election night, it would have been different. But he didn't. Like, remember, they silenced the fucking guy. They deplatformed him. And, and now he's getting ready to do it to everybody else. Like, they're going to be pushing for this because he's a hypocritical piece of shit. And his site, then he created True Social, which sucks. And it's not about being a truther. And then, the day that he won the election, the stocks went like through the roof, and it's a $2 billion company. But after he dies, or after he, like this, whatever happens in the midterms, and then when the election ends, no one's going to be on True Social anymore. They're probably leaving now in droves, and it's going to be worth nothing again, right? Like it had this bubble. Anyways, let's get back to it here. Okay, scrolling through Twitter, this image came up 8 times. I checked it out because why would they even take a poll like that? Why would they take a poll on Fox Business asking for whether they thought this was fake or not? Why would Fox News post a question, find out how many people think it's fake? And when it comes up to 70%, why would they put that out there? Why would Fox News or Fox Business News, even worse, they wouldn't. This is a fake fucking poll. I look for it. It doesn't exist, right? Somebody just makes these fucking pictures up. Like, it's just, AI is just fucking, and disinformation and just wrecking the truth community. We know that the thing is, whatever it is, it looks fake as fuck, just like the thing with Trump in the year was over the top. And so that was, more obviously fake, but this thing is, more subtly fake, but who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. Nothing's going to be done. Nobody cares, right? Nobody's going to do anything about it. No leverage. Okay, so can you believe this bullshit? I'm going to stick this in. This is Tuesday, April 28th. I'm going to stick this in somewhere where I made the video yesterday. Probably where I am editing here. I'm not editing the video, so I'll just put it in wherever I'm editing. The Pentagon may not be telling Trump the full picture about the war. Vice President Vance is worried the U.S. is running low on weapons. And so, in a closed-door meeting, J.D. Vance has repeatedly questioned the Defense Department's depiction of the war in Iran and whether the Pentagon has understood what appears to be a drastic depletion of U.S. missile stockpiles. 2 senior administration officials told us that the Vice President has queried the accuracy of the information the Pentagon has provided about the war. He also expressed his concerns about the availability of certain missile systems in discussions with President Trump. Several people familiar with the situation told us the consequences of the dramatic drawdown in munitions reserves are potentially dire. U.S. forces would need to draw from the same stockpiles to defend Taiwan against China, South Korea against North Korea, in Europe against Russia. And Israel, more, they'd have to give more to Israel because Israel's all depleted too. So here's the thing about that. So he's a lying sack of shit, and he's just a weasel. But to blame the military for this debacle, because there's plenty of people in the military who I'm sure told Trump this is not, doable. Like, there's not that many people in the military that thought this was a good idea. But let's say there were. He's saying this, that they're lying. He's saying the military's lying to the president because, he can't talk to the president himself. He can't say this. He's going to the liberal Atlantic magazine and dropping this information. There's no way that Trump doesn't know about it because he'd be cut out. He needs Trump's blessing to be the next MAGA guy. It's between him and Marco Rubio. So, J.D. Vance is a fucking weaselly motherfucker, right? Like, we've seen this over and over again. And, he knows the truth and won't say it over and over again. Like, he covers for Trump and guesses Trump's a taint in this thing. So he's not, undercutting Trump here. He's trying to, give them some plausible deniability to blame the military for this debacle that's happening. And the munitions thing, there was a guy on Tucker Carlson's show, some guy was a website that knows about all this shit. And, I showed you this clip probably about 3 weeks ago. And he says that the military-industrial complex is broken. Trump's putting pressure on them to put out more Tomahawk missiles, but they can't because they're all fucked up. Like, there's all this bureaucracy and there's all this fucking corruption, and it's fucked. And they blew through all these Tomahawk missiles, so they had to convert to bombing. They had to, bring in bombers and drop bombs because they're running out of missiles. And they're going to need those missiles if there's a war with China or Russia or these other countries. And, they're going to know you're depleted. And they're going to know your fucking systems are broken and out of date, right? And so they're, like, completely fucked, right? They're already blew through all their Tomahawk missiles. And now J.D. Vance is confirming this to a liberal publication, the same one where this guy included the guy in the fucking chat. Remember the Signal Gate fucking bullshit thing that happened? And so Trump knew about this. They're looking for some way to excuse Trump. But why can't he and other people talk to Trump? Like, Trump, can hear different opinions. He could say these very things to Trump. Like, why is he talking to the fucking Atlantic? Or he could go on Fox News and say this shit. And the Fox News, Trump watches, and Trump would be like, oh, JD, why'd you go do that? Because, it also makes look like Trump like a dope, but it's better than being on the hook for this fucking war. It's Israel that lied to him, and no people want to say that because, fuck, that confirms everything. It's not the military that lied to him or whatever, and they pressured him. And so Trump's boxed in. They're looking for some out. J.D. Vance is a sacrificial goat here. He's trying to make himself look good as well. He's giving himself plausible deniability for this thing and say he never really wanted this war in the first place, but he's going to have to do it in a way that he doesn't betray MAGA, and MAGA doesn't exist anymore. J.D. Vance is fucked. This effeminate motherfucker, right? And so, but it's just silly. Why didn't you tell him? Like, why are you telling the Atlantic when you could tell him? Hey, I think they're misleading you. The military's lying. And when you accuse the military of lying, just like when you accuse the intelligence community, remember Trump went after the CIA when he first came into office, and Chuck Schumer was gloating on Rachel Maddow that they have 6 ways of Sunday getting back at you. And so they started coming back at Trump, right? And fucking, and then Trump learned his lesson. He stopped criticizing the intelligence community. Like he won't criticize the Secret Service because they know all his shady shit that he's doing behind closed doors. He doesn't want to fuck with those guys, right? Especially since he's been needing them to cover up for his fake assassination attempts. This is such a fucking shit show. It's so incompetent, and it's such, does anybody want to hear that our munitions are fucking, our missile systems are depleted because of some bullshit war? Unless even bullshit war. And Trump's like fucking, it's a problem when you declared victory and the other country's like, yeah, you didn't fucking beat us. It makes Lego videos mocking you. And then you want to get out, but the other country that's puppeting you won't let you. And you kind of don't want to get out because you got to save face too. But you want to declare victory, but you can't get out. And you're just depleting more and more missile things. And China's feeding Iran information and weapons so that happens, just like we did in the Ukraine. And you're fucking wearing down your military and all these things. in a bullshit war and the American people don't like it, and the gas prices go up to $10 a gallon when that all shit happens. It's fucking straight or Hormuz. Like all that shit, you're getting Hormuz from behind by fucking Netanyahu. Like that, when doesn't that suck when that happens, right? And so look, this is a fucking shit show. Like just, it's embarrassing. And JD Vance is, like it's, anybody with critical thinking skills could say, this is Trump's war. Like he made this decision. He pressured the military. I'm sure the military, they had plans on how to do Iran, but they wanted to do it under different circumstances. And some of these guys they're firing aren't on board. They fired a bunch of the military brass. They're not firing them because they lied to them about the missiles. They're firing them because they didn't want to do what Trump wanted them to do. And now Trump's fucking knee deep in this fucking thing. He's underwater. And it's like going to define him as a piece of shit. He's lost like tons of support, even though they won't say so. And the MAGA is fucking done. And this is all that's left is this kind of fucking blaming. You don't blame the military. That's always a fucking, like, that's just, you can't do that. Right. I mean, it's just it's a fucking no-no. Anyway, so that's this piece of shit. All right, so this is a positive use of AI. The caption was Trump's shots heard in Los Angeles. Trump. So, not another staged event. Original Netflix remake. 8 shots fired, nobody got hit, not even the shooter. That's not luck, that's a script. The Lindsey Graham thing again. That's the poll. And there's so many things here about being staged. Kash Patel. Trump's latest assassination attempt gets 2-star IMDb rating for poor pacing and predictability. We don't even know what's real or what's fake anymore. I suppose that's an AI person. Fucking Donald Trump looking sassy. The thing I just showed you. Erica J. Kirk, I think that is. And Cole Allen. Here's the guy here. This guy, I meant to show you this.
So, to be clear, this is on Benny Johnson's X account. He's holding a sign, right? You can zoom in on that and make it a little bit easier for everyone to see, right? He's holding a sign, okay? And now he's running with the sign. Here he comes, guys. He's holding a sign, and his face swallows it. Where did his sign go?
Okay, dipshit. So the guy who posted this originally, and maybe you missed it, said that AI made shit up. And I called this out that night. And then I realized and went back and looked at it, and he said this was AI. Benny Johnson, this guy, or both of them, took off the fact that this was an AI generated to clean up Trump's horrible thing. So there's nothing to see here. That's just AI, trying to make sense of almost, unviewable video.
It's not on the ground. It's nowhere. His face swallowed the sign.
Yeah, it's because of AI. This thing's AI. Here.
I also saw a lot of very strong, physically strong, really attractive law enforcement people come through those doors. I also saw a lot of...
That's great. Tell them the White House needs a ballroom. And then look at these people smirking. Operation Epic Ballroom again, ball. And so they keep saying it's fake and gay. And then, sure, pal. I'm not a crook. I didn't have sexual relations with that woman. I'm not a rapist. I'm not a pedophile. That's a wonderful meme. I got to send that to my wife. If you go to my playlist, I started calling this Ketchup Gate the day or day after, a couple days in. Hashtag Ketchup Gate. And here we are today. I'm a trendsetter. Trump's WWE bills. Here's my playlist. And this one, if I edit it, they don't include the whole title in the thing, but it's AKA Ketchup Gate, Band-Aid Gate, hashtag pose. I'm not sure what I was trying to do with that. Trump's WWE-style fake staged assassination attempt, a.k.a. Ketchupgate. And the first one was, okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Put dementia on hold. Trump just got his ear pierced. Sisters, fake, 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 fake.
Fake, 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 fake.
So I started this video when I was talking about Trump and the stupidity behind 2025 and how they were, messing up the whole Joe Biden dementia gate thing that was happening. And, I was making that video this morning. Today's Saturday, July 13th, but a big event happened. Richard Simmons died. Another big event happened. Alec Baldwin was acquitted. And the third biggest thing that happened, the third story, Donald Trump got his ear pierced. I butchered that joke. Donald Trump got his ear pierced. So this is what happened, how I found out about it. My wife said there was all right, so this was like the day of, and I knew it was fake, right? Okay, greetings, brothers. Trump and Biden are besties. Now Trump is in crisis actor confirmed. Okay, greetings, brothers. Well, I was right. All admitted WWE acting. Biden has 2 more disastrous interviews. Okay, while Trump claims divinity, then goes a full Hulkster at convention, hits new low. Greetings. Well, if you're not willing to consider Ketchupgate might be fake, you're not a truther, you're a sheeple. So then there's multiple ones here with Ketchupgate in it, right? As we go through it. Tampon Tim versus Maxi Pad Don. Kaboom. Trump's admitted he protected Hillary. Trump Elon exposed the lies behind Ketchupgate. Ketchupgate. More Ketchupgate, so. Here's this one here. Okay, greetings. There I am. Trump doubles down on Ketchupgate and why the truth community can't see the hoax. So, I was covering this from day one. And I was really bummed to find out that pretty much every truther, according to my viewers, I don't watch other truthers because, the whole thing's pointless. I don't, it's just going nowhere. But, Trump copied Ketchupgate. Man, I burst out laughing. From Miss Marple's show. Yeah, there's a Miss Marple show now, I remember that. Here. And we didn't even notice that. She gets shot in the ear, remember? It's something, if you saw this one. Joe Rogan shills. Okay. Trump BS story, I don't talk to dumb fucks. So 24 videos in this thing. Some of them I probably didn't even put up because I didn't start doing the playlist till late into the game. But, it's just people weren't on board with this thing. Now everybody's like, putting up ketchup, which is great. Yeah, this is something. Anyways, let me wrap this one up for now, and I'll come back tomorrow with some more stuff. Okay, Tuesday, April 28th. So I started making this video last night, and I was talking about the Ketchupgate thing and how I was personally disappointed with the way the Ketchupgate thing went, with the way that the truth community handled Trump's fake assassination attempt, right? Well, first of all, I should say this, that, I say over and over again, either there's God or there's not God, and if there is God, there's a plan. Like, God has to be all-encompassing, right? People don't even think about it this way because they don't have, really, there's not, in most cases, the capacity, but also we're not focused on this. You're not, it's not something that, maybe your mind wanders when you're a kid. There's a certain time in life where I start having spiritual thoughts. I started thinking about God, like when I was, 12, 13 years old. The puberty years or whatever it might be, these times where, you start having an adult mind, your mind and your brain, everything develops. And there's this period of time where people will think about such things and then it sort of gets shut down. by society and the materialism and all the things. But if there is a God, it isn't some, there are beings out there, physical beings perhaps, but certainly spiritual beings that dwarf human beings. Like, we are to an ant what, what an ant is to us, we are to these beings, right? And it's not like, like you think about Galactus or these, in the Marvel comics and these, these kind of evolved giants or whatever it is, things that are, live eons, live much longer lives. I mean, there's, kind of that element. But really, it's evolved spiritually. Like it's, your proximity to God. That you're moving along in your spiritual evolution and developing a greater understanding of creation and, your things that you can't even comprehend when you're in a physical body, like even the most spiritual people. But, in the Sajmark tradition, the third master of the system was asked, somebody said, what's the difference between me and Babaji, the second master of the system? And he jokingly said, there's 1,000 times more difference between you and Babaji than there is between you and an amoeba, right? In terms of spiritual evolution and levels of consciousness. And so, there are higher developed souls. And to you and I, they appear as gods. Like Jesus was not very developed. And he was close enough to where people could see the difference. Like he was close enough to them in terms of his spiritual development that they could see the difference. But when you meet somebody who is on the highest levels of human spiritual evolution, you can't even comprehend them. Like they don't even make sense to you, right? And so to people, they seem like gods. If an alien race lands in a tribe and with their spaceships and their technology and their evolution and their consciousness, or even humans that would come back and again, there's no time travel, but if there was, time travel, if human beings came back from 10,000 years ago for now, they would be completely different, if there was evolution happening. Right now there's de-evolution happening. We're going the wrong direction. But if there was evolution happening, people would come back and the people would treat them like gods. Like there's that, it's kind of a great movie, The Man Who Would Be King, and Michael Caine and Sean Connery find this tribe, and the tribe, has a prophecy of a god that's going to come to them. And he looks just like Sean Connery, so they make the guy a god. And he starts acting like a god, and the people kind of realize he's not. And then they have to escape. It's kind of an interesting thing, The Man Who Would Be King. Like, it's an old movie. But, there's that element, right, where, something's more evolved than you and has greater capacity. Like, like dogs look at their owners, right? Well, I was talking about my dog, Lucy. Dogs look at their owners because they're so much more evolved. They call them Judas goats because goats are so much smarter than sheep that the goats will lead the sheep to slaughter. The sheep will follow the goat because they know it's smarter than them, right? And so there's that element, like that, where something's more evolved than you, but that's not God, right? God would have to be, something, an entity that's, that's alive without any capacity for failure, any capacity for, perfection, right? Ultimate perfection. Where there would be no mind, there would be no making mistakes. There would be no, everything would be perfect, and there would be a plan, and there has to be a plan, right? And so when you realize that there's that out there, or if you want to, it's kind of a leap of faith because you can't even comprehend to that, right? Because of our human limitations. But when you believe in that, then everything is done for a reason. Like things seem unfair. And so when you get disappointed in other people, when you get disappointed in, the way things shake out for you or the world, when you get angry, it's really all anger at God. Like you're saying, hey, I know more than you. Your plan sucks, right? That's what you're saying to God. Your plan sucks. Everybody's mad at God and everybody's mad in general. And of course, these are human reactions and actual reactions out of ignorance and not being able to see the big picture and, limited to, this life that you have. You can't remember your past lives or future lives, and you're limited to this, point in time. And, human beings have been maybe, you could say stupidly, but not really because it's part of God's plan. You've been given the ability for freedom of choice, and we've created whatever we've created, and it's not good, right? For the most part, what human beings have created in terms of, who they are inside and what they are inside and what they believe and their own realities and all these things, right? Lies. Like, we've created lots of lies and deception. And so, in all that, whenever I get disappointed or I get angry or when I work to remember, because I always talk about how important gratitude is to, this is part of God's plan, and you don't know more than God, so, just get over it, right? But there are things that sort of linger and bother me. And, whatever happened in the Sajmark tradition, the Sajmark debacle with Daji, that turned into heartfulness, and all the people, many of them saintly people, really spiritual people, more, what I would consider more evolved than me, people who are just, better, more committed to God, people who I looked up to. They couldn't deal with it, and that whole thing was a major disappointment, like disappointment in the human race. And so for the truth community, there was a defining moment where I was stunned to find out that the majority of almost everybody, and now they're jumping on the bandwagon, but back then, not. And when I started hearing from my viewers that all these truthers weren't calling Trump out on his bullshit, obviously WWE fake assassination attempt, right? And here's what really sucked about it. Well, before I get to that, that's the big reveal. But this morning, a video popped up with, I think her name is Brooke Hogan. It was his daughter who cut herself out of the will. It was like a short 1-minute video. And she cut herself out of the will, and the guy was saying, no one could believe you did that, right? And she said, well, I was scared for my life, and I don't know what Hulk Hogan had in terms of money. And she said, he was surrounded by very bad people. And I tried to tell him, but he didn't do anything about it. So this was a guy who was surrounded by so many bad people that she removed herself from the will because she thought they would try to kill her for the money, right? Like with Michael Jackson and these other people. These Prince and all these people that amass money, and then they, it gets absorbed by the powers that be. They want that fucking, they want that Neverland Ranch and all that stuff. So this is the kind of person that Trump was around, in terms of bringing him in, these, because if Hulk Hogan was surrounded by these bad people, then Trump would be. I mean, Trump's a bad person himself, right? But, the problem with what happened with the WWE style, obviously fake assassination attempt, that all these people let their personal feelings towards, whatever it was, the Make America Great Again movement, their audience who liked Trump, they didn't want to go against their audience. They, they were liking the vibe and the feeling, whatever it was, right? Whatever that movement was that sucked in so many of these truthers, these fake truthers, they were willing to lie to themselves and lie to their audience, or, cover up or whatever it was, put on blinders, whatever they did, whatever psychological coping mechanism they did to, ignore the truth. They did it. And it meant the truth community was, like worthless, like it's worse than the mainstream media. The mainstream media is at least, the mainstream media is controlled to whatever extent. I've always said this, the mainstream media is limited because they have editors and they have sponsors and they have handlers and they have, something, controlling them, right? Where the good thing about alternative media is you can just say whatever you want. Of course, they've, put in censorship, and they're trying to do that again now. Like Trump is going to try to censor the truth community. Anybody criticizing him, all these people that are now turned on him, but like he turned on them. And he can't take any kind of criticism. He wants to, make it a criminal act to criticize the demonic king, right? And so, that's where this is gone. And all these people who ignored the truth, right? Because that was the big moment. It was it was a moment where the truth community had to, we really got duped by this guy Trump, and it hurts. But he just fucked us with this fake assassination attempt. Like it was it. It was the whole thing. He showed his hand. He showed that he didn't give a shit about MAGA or the truth or anything like that. He was willing to do anything, he's an actor and a puppet and a faker and and he's completely handled and he's lying to you and a grifter. He just fucking, I mean, it's like somebody does something to deceive you. Like it's like your loved ones or your family members, and they do this deception, right? I mean, the other thing is so two things I watched this morning. Chris Christie said that the Kushners are the worst fucking people. They're diabolical. Chris Christie was doing this interview. And he said, because he put Jared Kushner's dad in jail. Jared Kushner was the second richest man in New Jersey, and Chris Christie was the governor of New Jersey. And so his dad was using his sister and maybe his siblings. I kind of faded out. I wasn't listening to part of it, as because I had heard the story before, to maximize political donations. And then he got caught, so he decided to ask his sister to sort of vouch for him, and she wouldn't do it. And so he hired a prostitute, and he had her husband seduced by a prostitute. He videotaped it, and then he gave it to his sister anonymously on like their wedding anniversary to like get them divorced or whatever. And that's kind of what got him to go to jail. Like that's the kind of scumbag he was, right? Most people can't even imagine this kind of thing. This guy, and a lot of it had to do with him being engaged in criminal activity, and he was buying off politicians. And he said Jared's just like his dad. Just the worst person. I mean, we've talked about him, the 666 Fifth Avenue or whatever he bought. Like he bought the 666th building on Fifth Avenue, right? There's Park Avenue 666 show, which was like a gateway to hell or something. I didn't see the show, but the images are there. But anyways, so like you have people like would do shit like that. Like let's say somebody did that in your personal life. People manipulate the shit out of you. They lie and they create some deception, right? Some massive deception like Trump did for his fake assassination attempt. Where he's misleading you with something and he's making himself look good. Like, it wasn't just the try to get sympathy, but him looking like a badass and saying fight, fight, fight. It shows you he's a fraud and a fake. And you could never trust that person. You could never trust a person that would go through such an elaborate hoax or a system that would allow that to happen. And yeah, the mainstream media is compromised because there's so many of these events that they cover as real fucking things happening. But when the truth community bought into it, that meant they were worse than the mainstream media because you pretended to be truthers. But once you got compromised with Trump, either because of your following or because of whatever reason, whatever personal reason you had for going along with it, and whether you are capable of even seeing it because you are so self-deceived, it's your job to look into and question such things because the mainstream media isn't going to look into and question. No one in the mainstream media was going to call this ketchup gate, right? I did, because it's my fucking job. Like it's my job to call bullshit on these things. But all these other people in the truth community, they didn't do it. And that meant the whole truth community was compromised. Like these people can never be trusted again, especially if they didn't even think to ask. Like it didn't cross their mind it might be fake. Like it never once, or they immediately shut it down. Because that's not your job. It's not your job to say, oh, I like Trump, or I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the one person to say anything. And they went to other truthers and watched them, and they were like, oh, they're not calling it fake, or whatever process they went to, right? They can't be trusted ever, like as truthers or anything. Like they're failure, unless they come, have some kind of existential crisis, right? You don't serve a political party. You don't have specific, people or whatever. There's some people that you might like more. But you should be honest about it and say, I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to cover Kyrie Irving negatively because of what he did with the vaccine in the show. Whether it's just, an act or whatever, it's just, it was enough to where he's always, that like he did enough. Like he did enough as a person. He stood up at a time where no one was standing up. Whether it was part of a script or not, I don't know. But, like he gets a pass, right? And, he's not in a position. It'll be different if he... whatever, like if he was a Trump. But you have to look into things when it's the president. You have to look into it. Like if, you have to say, all right, you have to vet it. And the people in the truth community didn't vet this, fake assassination attempt. And now they are. Fuck them, right? Fuck you now. Like, like it was your job to do it back then. It was your job to at least ask. It was your job to at least, I don't know what this is. It looks like it could be fake. Like I said, if it was Joe Biden, you would have said it was fake. I mean, if it was anybody else but Trump, you would have said it was fake. So all those people became worthless. Like they have to, I mean, they have to do some soul searching wherever they are, because you're either a shill or you're just fucking inept at your job. You just suck as a truther. Like you served the biggest liar in history. You got duped by a fucking demon. Like Trump is a fucking demon. I say he's doing God's work, but demons do God's work, right? Demons do destructive work. They bring down a destructive system. They're self-destructive. Trump is he's a bad luck Shreplock. He ruins things. Anything Trump touches goes to shit, right? He has the reverse Midas touch. Well, even the Midas touch, you turn everything into gold when you touch it. That's not good, right? What about your kids? You want to turn your kids into gold? You want to turn your wife into gold, right? You want to turn your dog into gold? Like, you can't touch anything ever again because you turn it into gold. Not everything's supposed to be gold, right? You can't go around the world. The whole world would be gold. He touched everything in the world, and every tree, there'd be no oxygen. There'd be no, like gold isn't the best thing in the world. It's just value. And a big part of its value comes from its limitations, right? It's limited. But if you turn everything into gold, then it's worthless because it's everything, right? Gold's everywhere. So, he's got the Midas touch or reverse Midas touch. Everything that Trump touches turns into something bad, right? It's, he's corruptible. He's a corrupt piece of shit. He's he's got bad energy. The thing about it is it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter that I called it out or if everybody called it out. Trump was going to get elected. It was fixed that way. Trump was getting elected. They weren't going to elect fucking Kamala Harris president. She had no shot. That was all fucking, So it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter, but it would have mattered. Maybe you would have lost your viewers or whatever it is. Whatever personal reason these fake truthers didn't say anything about it. It's convenient now to do it. Like, it's easy to do it. Everyone's turning on Trump. Now you can question it. Oh, yeah, it's by fake. Well, yeah. Well, when you were supporting them, when it made a difference, and it did make a difference because, like I say, it would have been elected, but it would have made a difference for you. It would have, in terms of your integrity, in terms of your work ethic, in terms of your abilities. You're meant to do something as a truther, and it's to question everything that the mainstream media won't question, and that's all bullshit. You should think about everything as being bullshit. At least some way it's bullshit before you even know anything about it. Because they lie all the time. This is, we live in a deceptive third-dimensional reality that isn't a pure reflection of our soul. It's deceptive. The world is deceptive, and people are deceptive, and people lie. And people lie, more than they tell the truth. And then they create their own imaginary worlds, which is all an illusion. So their whole belief system and everything that they think and do is based in lies. And these lies, keep people from seeing, their true purpose and, distorts reality. It's a distortion of reality. And so you're here as a person that's supposed to be, looking through the distortion, trying to figure out the truth in a, like a needle of truth in a haystack full of lies. And it's, really impossible if you don't get to the spiritual thing. It's the same thing with your religion. Your religion's a huge part of the lie. It's the fundamental building block of all these other lies. I mean, Christianity, but all religions, but that particularly for here and all these people. And they're still Christians, and they still, say they're dumb bullshit biblical lies and all these things. And it's all part of this stuff with, you can't criticize Israel if you're not willing to look at the Bible. You can't criticize any of these countries and people if you're not willing to look at the bullshit Bible and the bullshit religion, your bullshit indoctrination, right? And the rest of it. So, like, this is, people just will always let you down. People always go low. I mean, that's just the reality, and it sucks, and like I said, the only thing that I have going for me with it is that, I believe God has a plan, and why should I complain when, why do I know that God doesn't know, right? Well, how do I know more than God? It's impossible. Because, an individual mind and individual consciousness cannot comprehend perfection, right? Cannot comprehend, the universe. We can't we can't hold the whole universe in our minds or, whatever it is. We can do it in our hearts, like, in a non-consciously, non-thinking way. You can hold, your heart can not hold it, but your heart can expand, to encompass the whole universe. That's a universal heart. That's the best you can be in terms of your spiritual evolution, where, your heart expands so much so it just keeps on expanding. First it starts with, yourself, and then it expands to your family, and then to your, whatever it is, neighborhood, region, and then it, eventually like the whole world, and then the whole universe, right? This is what happens to a spiritual person. Like that's the only path towards, feeling God on, understanding God on a heart level, but never mentally. And so we could never mentally conceive of, all the intricacies in the divine system. That is perfection. And if there's no God, there's no perfection. But if there is God, there's a plan and there is perfection. And so, in that perfection, humans are very imperfect, and, we'll always, at least the human beings that are here now, will always tend to go low, right? If they have a choice between going low or going high, a choice between their soul and their ego, they'll choose their ego. Like, that's just how we're, people are. Like, we'll be selfish and all these things. And so there needs to be an evolution. Like, there has to be something where we some stuff that's inside of us clicks in. Some of the potential that's inside of us clicks in. This is the purpose of the Sajmarg meditation that I do. Genetic mutation at some point, not physical mutation, but a spiritual evolution where people no longer embrace their lower nature, but, are just tend to, like you have people who, like, you're an alcoholic and, you're going to tend to drink. Like, you're a gambling addict, you're going to tend to gamble. Like, I just saw a story, some college football player, went and checked into rehab for gambling addiction. And I don't know what it was. Like, it must be an ESPN thing. I saw it like the other day. And the guy was, he was in his third or fourth year in college. And he had bet like 20,000 bets, not on his own team apparently. And the announcers were like, the people telling the story, whatever, said, there's a huge problem with young people in gambling, like young men particularly in gambling. And I'm like, yeah, because you fucking, you've made it legal, right? Like and these athletes are, they all have all these accidents. You're constantly pushing, like they now, and if you're watching sports events, they'll do a commercial right there in the show. Like they started it with Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith on the NBA Today, where they'd come in and they would talk about the bets they were going to make in the middle of the fucking game. A number of these local, every NBA team has a local, coverage of their games. And they have broadcast networks, and FanDuel owns like 4 or 5 of these contracts. So FanDuel is constantly, dropping their shit and encouraging people to bet all the time, right? And so, like, this is how corruption works. This is where people go low. ESPN now has their own, betting network, whatever app. And so now they promote this, right? And they openly talk about betting during the game, ex-athletes, and now these young people are growing up and like, wow, well, all of a sudden all these young guys are getting addicted to gambling. Well, fucking why not? I wonder how that happened, right? Well, you've made it legal and you've made it, you're advertising the shit out of it. And, at the end of these things, a lot of these podcasts where people, tune into sports, opinions and things, sports podcasts are sponsored by gambling networks because there's so much fucking money in it, right? I lived in Vegas. There's so much money in gambling. It's the easiest, people just handing you their money, right? I mean, the odds are rigged against you. So you're just, like you're literally just saying, I want to lose. Like gambling is, an admission that you want to lose, right? Because, other than counting cards and blackjack, where if they find out, they beat the shit out of you and you ban you from casinos, right? The odds are against you, and you're choosing to bet against the odds. You're just saying, here, take my money, right? Like that's what gambling is. So, that's how human beings are wired. I've seen it over and over again. I've had to work with the depraved, working with sex offenders, criminal sex offenders as a counselor in the treatment centers, and, just the depravity of the world and just my experience with this and what I cover here on a daily basis. There's people who tend to be spiritual or be good people, but even those people get compromised. Their egos get big, they fall. Spiritual people, Jesus fell, towards the end of his life. I mean, it's a very common occurrence. People are, it's a hard thing for people to become spiritual and sustain any kind of spiritual evolution. Like it's a block in the human condition right now, and something has to be removed. Something has to be activated. Something has to change here on planet Earth. And, this is openly talked about in the Sajmark system, that this is going to happen. And, I see a need for it every day. And I, hope and pray that it does happen because, no, we're just fucking up the world, and it's just, it's just toiling at this point. There's just nothing here. Like, there's nothing but de-evolution, and idiocracy, where people are just getting stupider and stupider and going in the wrong direction and weaker, and it's a hard thing to watch. I mean, and I find these things funny. Like, that's why, it's easier for me, but Jesus Christ, it's a shit show. Like, I've always found this kind of thing funny, and it's probably the quality that's allowed me to do this job, that, it makes me laugh a little bit to see this condition happen time and time again. But, like, at some point it has to fucking go. And this is the point. Like, it's either going to happen or it's not. Anyways, all right, let me just wrap this up here and continue on with whatever else I got to report in this, wonderful video.
Welcome to The Beat. I'm Antonia Hilton, in this evening for Ari Melber.
It's pronounced Meebla. All right, so I saw this and copied it off the TV. They also, they're going to echo that same thing about blaming truthers and independent people in social media.
Today, the shooting outside the White House Correspondents' Dinner is renewing scrutiny of America's political climate, from partisan rhetoric and conspiracy theories to the very boundaries of free speech.
The very boundaries of free speech? What do you mean the very boundaries of free speech, right? Now, Trump's a piece of shit because that's what all you guys cover. Like, MS Now thinks Trump's the biggest piece of shit, even more than CNN. MS Now is the number one, Trump's a piece of shit. They are the most anti-Trump, even more than CNN is anti-Trump, right? And you're saying that there's no boundaries to free speech, right? You're saying this is like saying fire in a crowded theater? Like, that's what you're saying? In reality, that should be covered under free speech as well. But you're saying this shouldn't be, because all these pieces of shit are getting crushed by social media. And so they all want it. This is what they all want. They want, restrictions on social media because they're losing. And, this is obviously a fake fucking bullshit thing that happened. There's a security lapse, which they're going to talk about here in a second. She's going to talk about security lapse. They never would call bullshit or fake because they're fake news. They can't call that stuff. They can't say this is fake because all the other stuff is fake too, right? Like, they're lying all the time. And so, but for you to say, let's listen to that again.
Today, the shooting outside the White House Correspondents' Dinner is renewing scrutiny of America's political climate, from partisan rhetoric and conspiracy theories to the very boundaries of free speech. We start with the shooting suspect in federal court today. 31-year-old Cole Thomas Allen, charged with 3 counts. The most serious, an attempt to assassinate the President of the United States. Allen also facing 2 weapons charges, including discharging a firearm during a crime of violence. The assassination charge could carry a penalty of life in prison. Allen did not enter a plea. He's going to be back in court on Thursday, the hearing today taking only about 15 minutes. Late today, top DOJ officials gave a press conference and said they expect more charges to be filed in this case. The New York Post obtaining over 1,000 pages attributed to the suspect.
She means 1,000 words. What do you mean pages? You wrote a fucking 1,000-page manuscript. Then she's going to quote, it's 1,000 words, right?
Apparently laying out some of his alleged motives, including calling himself a friendly federal assassin. It also contains apologies to loved ones and lists so-called rules of engagement with Secret Service agents, guests, and Trump administration officials, making it clear the latter are his primary targets, with one curious exception, the director of the FBI, Kash Patel.
That was weird. And, probably, they lose their voice, right? Like, you never hear from the guy again. Like, you never hear the patsy again. Like, there's just, they show you pictures of him in court. It's completely controlled, whatever it is, right?
In his writings, the suspect critiqued security, mocking what he described as lax precautions and expressing surprise he was able to enter the hotel armed without detection. The Washington Post reports that the Trump administration provided a lower level of security for the dinner than it has for other gatherings of high-ranking officials, even though the president and many cabinet members were in attendance.
Fucking boom. All right, there it is right there. They provide lower level of security. They bring some experts on. One guy said, like, having those, like when you see at the airport where they have those like metal whatever they are, and there's Velcro straps between, like so that you have a queue, and you have to go through these various. You have to walk through a maze of these things, like at the airport security, and even those things would have made the guy stop running because he came in at a full fucking sprint. You see in the video, right? And so, like, just having some obstructions would have gave him more time to figure out what to do with the guy. The guy, they could have disarmed him there, but they didn't even have anything like that, But having lower level security, and then having people think it's staged and it looks staged, well, you order lower security if you're going to do a staged event, right? And again, the guy didn't go anywhere close to him, and the fucking thing's a joke. But it's everybody's free speech is at risk here. What? How's that happen? So this piece of shit. So then I guess they went and she doubled down on this. I got the video for that.
This was an event dedicated to freedom of speech that was supposed to bring together members of both parties with members of the press. And in a certain way it did. Because the fact that they...
Look how jumpy this motherfucker is. I didn't even see this. I watched this before. Watch Cash Patel here.
Because the fact that they
This
just
jumpy motherfucker. Maybe he is on Adderall.
Unified. I saw a room that was just
or cocaine.
Totally unified. It was in one.
I saw a room that was unified. It looked so fucking unified, like that woman grabbing fucking champagne bottles.
Very beautiful.
For a moment, some thought there might be a reset. In the hours following...
Nobody fucking thought that. You mean him? Trump isn't reset shit. Trump's reset is everybody agrees with him. So that's never going to happen. No one thought this was going to be a reset. No one fucking took this seriously. Majority of people are like, fuck, this was fake.
The shooting at Saturday's White House Correspondents' Dinner, Trump struck a somewhat somber tone. But then within 24 hours, Trump reverted back to usual form, and any restraint seemed short-lived. He was back in a combative posture by Sunday. In an interview with CBS 60 Minutes, Trump repeatedly attacked the anchor Norah O'Donnell personally, and the media more broadly, for the act of asking straightforward questions about the shooting suspect.
He writes this quote, administration officials, they are targets. And he also wrote this, I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people.
You're horrible people.
You should be ashamed of yourself reading that. You're a disgrace. But go ahead, let's finish the interview.
The other thing that he wrote in
You're disgraceful. I'm not a king. What I am...
You're disgraceful.
If I was a king, I wouldn't be dealing with you. We have some great people in the press, some very fair people, and people that are just on my side. But for the most part, it's a very liberal or very progressive, let's use the word liberal press.
So here, the Jimmy Kimmel joke, they get into that here.
That Trump and the First Lady seem to be referring to.
Our First Lady Melania is here. Look at Melania, so beautiful. Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow.
Just fake fucking laugh track. This just all sucks so fucking bad. Dude, you're supposed to be a comedian. Holy shit, bro.
Melania's birthday is on Sunday. That's right. She's planning to celebrate at home the same way she always does, looking out a window and whispering, "What have I done?"
That joke was obviously written and performed before the events of Saturday night, but it's now landing, of course, in a very different political and social environment. Trump calling for ABC and Disney to immediately fire Kimmel, calling the segment, quote, far beyond the pale.
This so-called White House press secretary wants to lecture America and lecture us about civility. Get lost.
All right, so there's that. And this woman,
Fast contributing opinion writer with the New York
Cruella DeVille.
Times and
I have a thing I can't say, but it would be it'd begin with the letter J, and then Cruella DeVille, merged together.
now political analyst. It's great to have both of you guys. So, Molly, I want to start with you. You were at the dinner for part of that evening, but you weren't there when the shooting unfolded. But you have a sense of the room, the history of this event.
Look, they got a fucking cloudy sky above D.C.
The tension, of course, leading up to that night. When you see the president's rhetoric that we've seen, and there have been shifts in it just in the past 48 hours, what is the impression that you are left with here? Is there a serious grappling with the nature of political violence and everyone's role in it right now?
Well, I think there are two problems that are separate. One is the problem of the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which is at best looks very, the optics.
I mean, 10 stars on this hairdo.
On it are pretty terrible, and they always have been pretty dicey. The idea that you have members of the government and journalists and, and lobbyists and all sorts of DC swamp all together in a room, very dressed up. And then I think it's worth realizing, we are in a very heightened moment in American political life, and people are mad. But people are mad at journalists and politicians and everyone. And so I think it's important to sort of pull back.
It's important. She's making almost legitimate points here. The problem is, they're not running down the fucking hallway. Like this guy's manifesto. People have their own lives, right? If you get angry and vengeful and you get obsessed with somebody else or something, or some wrong been done to you, your life sucks, because then you're just, you get obsessed with hatred and resentment, and I mean, living your life so you don't feel resentful. I don't do anything if I'm going to feel resentful afterwards, right? That's why even with I do with the gratefulness meditation, I'm not going to, there's people wanting me to do gatherings and things like that with the gratefulness meditation. I'm like, yeah, but if I'm going to do all the work to make the gathering happen, and I got to fucking, spend all my time and energy and money to make it happen, and then fucking, I mean, it sucks or whatever, it doesn't go well, I'm going to feel resentful, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not putting myself in a position where, I just get let down by people, right? You just have to, whatever it is, you have to live your life in a way that you don't sit there stewing in your own hatred and anger. It's a bad thing to do. And most people don't do that. Most people realize this and let it go. But if you're angry all the time, maybe you do some kind of action. But, along the way, I mean, some part of you is going to be like, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in jail. I don't want to get shot. There's some self-preservation. And that's when they create these lone gunmen, but they don't have any backstory. They never become a human being. They're just this creation, this profile that they dream up. And the person never gets to speak and never gets to say why they did it. They're just some patsy. I mean, there's no they're not, well, what made this person do that, right? Because they don't develop the fucking person. They just, they're a creation of, this guy's reasoning for doing this is to, stop people criticizing Trump or, whatever, right? These are the kind of things they do. Look at your words. Everybody who's on social media and all the Democrats and all the people criticizing Trump, look at your words have done. You got to stop speaking. You can't talk like this. We got to pull your freedom of speech because of this guy. But there's no, the guy doesn't make sense. It's not like there's nothing there. The way he wrote about it, he thought he was going to get shot or thought he was going to be in jail. And he knows those two things. Why would he do it then? Right? And it's something that couldn't fucking possibly work. Running down the fucking hallway with a shotgun. Just it was silly. Like the guy's smart, he's educated. None of that stuff makes sense, right? Because they don't put enough effort into creating. There's not real people willing to do that, right? Or willing to put the effort into it. Doing all the things. Like some part of you would freak out at some point, right? If you've never killed somebody before, you think you're going to pull something like this off? I mean, it's not easy to kill somebody. It's not even to kill a deer like when people hunt. They get buck fever. When people, it's hard for people to kill shit. Like, I mean, most people. And if they're sociopaths, then they don't give a shit about what a piece of shit Trump is. If they want to make this guy a sociopath, then they're going to be all upset about what a piece of shit Trump is. Like, none of these things make sense, right? Like, they just create these, like, very vague cartoon characters that have no personal, aspirations or any, self-preservation or any of these things that human beings are born with.
And say none of this is happening in a vacuum. And I think that the anger that the American people have towards politicians is also sort of spilling out on journalists, and why it's so important that things like the White House Correspondents' Dinner probably don't happen anymore. And
yeah, okay. Well, that'll solve nothing, right? Anyways, all right. So this is Cruella de Vil. Whoa! In the Line of Fire was a movie released 33 years ago that hashtag it was attempted presidential assassination in a ballroom at the Westin Hotel. A Secret Service agent was shot in the chest and had a vest on. This is exactly what happened last night at the Hilton Ballroom. One was inside the ballroom. The other was very similarly very coincident. It's not a coincidence. There's always these movies now. I barely cover this stuff anymore. All right, I'm pretty sure I saw this movie. I'm not showing you the clip because it got copyrighted, which is a pain in the ass because I had to redo this part of the video. This is Clint Eastwood jumping to block he's a Secret Service and he's going to block the bullet. Right? This movie didn't look like it was very good. It's kind of like what happened with the thing with Trump, but not really. Because this guy jumped in front of a bullet in a ballroom in front of the president. And the gunman appeared to be a young John Malkovich. Anyways, so, there's that. Okay, so I just did the voiceover you're about to hear. And, Trump got deplatformed, right? And he suffered deplatforming. And I could see if you wanted to deplatform the Democrats. But, this lame joke, here, let's watch this here.
We've got some breaking news on the fight between the Trump administration and Jimmy Kimmel. The FCC is preparing to challenge the licenses of ABC affiliate stations. And a source tells CNN the process will begin as early as this afternoon. The licenses in question are not up for renewal for years, but the FCC says it can review them earlier. So far, ABC has stuck by Jimmy Kimmel after President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump demanded he be fired over a joke.
So, so it means is Trump's an absolute cunt. He's a fucking little bitch. He's a little cunt. Because this is what little cunts do, right? Because the joke that Jimmy Kimmel made was lame. Jimmy Kimmel sucks. And he shouldn't have a show. And he shouldn't have an audience. Because, just like all these... I mean, it's just like everybody else that's on late night and all these other shows and so many things and CNN and at Fox and Trump himself. A lot of the content out there just absolutely sucks. But that's, neither here nor there. People have a choice to watch it. And his joke had nothing to do with the assassination attempt. It was a joke of how miserable Melania is. Like, she'll be happy when Donald Trump dies because of the cheating and the whatever. Like, and whatever she did with she obviously has some issues with her husband, right? They don't have a happy marriage, right? Now, there wasn't just a Stormy Daniels thing. Trump was putting up some other playmate in an apartment. She had good things to say about Trump. And then there's all the other accusations, the womanizing, and all the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. And maybe she was on board for that. That didn't bother her. But there were things that she felt humiliated. And she can tell she's not digging her husband. She seems very ice cold, hardened, whatever. So, I would assume that was what the joke was about. In fact, that was what the joke was about, right? Because the second joke was a follow-up saying, she stares out the window and says, what did I do? Like she's, whatever. Like she married this guy and is waiting for him to die, which isn't, an abnormal thing, because there's been lots of people who, necessarily aren't going to kill their spouse, but wouldn't mind it if their spouse died, right? There are a lot of people that are pretty happy when their spouse dies, right? But, either way, Jimmy Kimmel has a right to say what he said. It wasn't very controversial. No one gave a shit about it. And, he has that right under the Constitution. And, the Democrats deserve every bit of this because of what Joe Biden did. All of us who were censored, all of us, big pharma, those big pharma shills censoring us. I couldn't tell you what I did to overcome COVID. Like, I couldn't say the supplements I was taking. I couldn't say any of that shit. I'd get a community guideline strike because they pressured. There's some statute that these guys have, social media giants, that allows them to have individual people post shit, and they're not responsible for any kind of, slander or any kind of legal obligation. If you take that away, all these social media giants have to collapse, right? They couldn't allow people to post, right? So, the Biden administration threatened them. So fuck all these guys, fuck all of them, right? Fuck the Democrats, fuck the Republicans, fuck the liberals, fuck the conservatives, all these people. But the reality is there's supposed to be freedom of speech. But even with the Iranians get to yell, "Death to America." That's not a reason to start a war. Trump is the thinnest skinned guy. For a guy who's such an obnoxious piece of shit, name calling, going after people, he's such a pussy, right? He's such a fucking punk. And so, this whole thing. And it's just going to start with this, and God knows what's going to happen. Now, this should be laughed off, and Trump is weak now, and he's a joke. But God knows what's going to happen. It might swing back the other way, and there'll be all that fucking agenda that they pushed, all that transgender, all that kind of stuff be coming back, all the censorship from the left when they take over. I mean, it's just, he's fucking over all of us and all of his fans, all of us in the truth community and all of his fans, because he's just a weak piece of shit, right? And so, over this fake fucking thing that happened to him.
He told last week about Melania having, quote, a glow like an expectant widow. Here's how Kimmel defended himself last night.
Obviously was a joke about their age difference and the look of joy we see on her face every time they're together. It was a very light roast joke about the fact that he's almost 80 and she...
Oh, yeah, there's one more thing I want to say about this. He was supposed to get roasted, but he was too much of a pussy for that, right? He did the celebrity roast, and he didn't like it, you could tell. And, he doesn't like the roast, and now he feels like he's above it. And so he brought in a fucking mentalist, and then he was going to roast, he was going to have a mentalist come in and not roast him, right, not embarrass him. And then he was going to go after all the fake news people in a brutal way. And then Kimmel does a slight joke, and he runs like a little pussy and runs to the FCC and wants to get their license pulled. So this is Trump. This is everything Trump is, was, and will be. All right, I made this voiceover earlier. This story is dying. There's not a lot of coverage for this, as far as I know. Like, there's some things, the fake assassination, the whole bullshit thing. We'll see what happens, but maybe there'll be a big surprise come in, but I doubt it. Like, it's, and eventually they're going to have to get back to Iran, right? That thing's going on. So, whatever. I don't think I'm going to add anything more to this video is what I'm saying. Here's the voiceover, and I'll post, this is going up tomorrow, Wednesday, and then there'll be something, Wednesday morning, and then Tuesday afternoon, and then Thursday evening. Here we go. Okay, so I just want to say something here. I might have said this before, but really didn't think about it. It might have just come through me. I said it, and I didn't really think about what it meant. And maybe I haven't said it before. Why would you want somebody to die for your sins? Why would you want someone else to bear responsibility for your sins? I mean, what a shitty person you are if that's what you're doing, right? You want to do things that's sinful behavior, and then you want someone else to suffer for your sins. Die for your sins, suffer for your sins, be tortured for your sins. I mean, that's the basis of Christianity. And I understand if you're a Christian and you grew up in it and you never thought about it. It's just the deal that you're getting. I mean, they sold this to bad people originally. But now you know about it because I just said it, and you can think about it, right? Like you never thought about it yourself, but now you've heard this, and as a Christian, I should probably put this audio up separately on the Gratefulness Meditation channel or something. But why would why would you do that? Like, why would you fucking think it's okay for someone else to die for your sins? Like, even criminals. So in the criminal world, having someone else take the rap for you when you commit a crime and you lie about it, or you rat out the person, whatever it is you do, so someone else gets to do your time, right, for the crime you committed. And that's considered a low thing among criminals. Like, you're called a weasel and a rat. I mean, just that kind of behavior, right? If you do the time, the crime, you got to be willing to do the time, right? That's just like shit criminals say. Like, criminals frown on that kind of shit, and that's just some crime where a person does time on the physical level in prison, which isn't great, sucks, but still, it's better than someone dying for your sins. Jesus being tortured for your sins. Why would you think that's okay, right? Why would you want to take that deal? Hey, there's someone out there who died for your sins. Really? Cool. I'll take that deal. What kind of fucking person are you to take that fucking deal? Take no accountability, responsibility for what you've done, and want to stick it on somebody else, right? And knowing that every time you sin or do something, you can just run back and say, well, Jesus died for it. And, I'm cool. I'm good, right? No matter what you do, you're okay. Like, it's a very low thing to do, right? I mean, leaving debt, there's people who take out credit cards in their kids' names. And they start their kid's life off with credit card debt. Like, leaving debts, leaving things for someone else, your children to bear. The sins of the father are whatever the saying is, are suffered by the son or the children. And so, that's all looked at and frowned upon. Like, not taking responsibility for your actions and not being accountable. But this one thing, which is the worst thing, which is sins, spiritual punishment, spiritual suffering. Like, why, I've said this before, why would God, God, we're all children of God, so the whole thing's bullshit. But why would God, this is what I'm saying, it's stupid. No one can die for your sins. It's impossible. And all these Republicans who don't want people on welfare, they want people on food stamps, they don't want to give handouts, they don't want to give handouts to foreign countries, they don't want to help countries in need, America first. You pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you piece of shit. Everyone's supposed to be accountable, but, not them for their sins. Fuck you guys. Fuck Jesus. I'll just, I'll do whatever I can, but he's suffering. Fuck that guy. Somebody you're supposed to love, somebody you're supposed to honor, somebody you're supposed to, you should emulate, right? That's the whole thing. Jesus came to be emulated. Any spiritual person, any saint is an example of what you can do and what you can be. That's where Christians don't understand the true meaning of Jesus' life. Like, that's why you get truth here you don't get from going to church or these other pieces of shit that keep on perpetuating these lies about Jesus and, because, you have to take responsibility. That's the whole fucking point of life. That you come down here, you're just a piece of shit sinner, you're born in sin, some bullshit fucking biblical story about a fucking apple and a fucking woman. There's 4 people, right? There's 4 people, and from all that, all of us came from for those 4 people. It's silly. It's a bullshit story. There was no Adam and Eve and fucking Cain and Abel. Like, that just doesn't exist. There has to be more. Would there be inbreeding then? Are we all retarded? Are we all fucking inbreds, right? Where did the next generation come? She only had 2 kids, and they were both boys, and one boy murdered the other boy. Where's all the rest of the people come from? They just fucking appeared? Like, the story doesn't make any fucking sense, right? And so, none of these things are true. We're a test tube creation, so that, whatever. Like that, there's scientific and spiritual evidence of that. We were a slave population that wasn't really thought about in terms of our spiritual evolution and what would happen when they left us behind, higher developed beings who created us, right, out of, probably the chimpanzee and their DNA, and they mix the DNA and they fuse the 2nd and 3rd chromosome. That's much more believable than somebody dying for your fucking sins, right? and the evidence is here, like we're all fucked up, right? Like, you know, if they make when you make a slave, all you care about is you getting your work done, right? If you make a slave, you know, let's say like you have trouble. I mean, one, you don't have a workforce, and two, you have trouble in the atmosphere, right? Like the planet you come from is not the same atmosphere as Earth, so you need workers, and so you make people out of like some kind of, you know, you take your DNA and you merge it with the highest creature that you can find, which is like a chimpanzee, and you make a slave that's there to do your work, and you don't give a shit what happens afterwards to the slaves. You're just, all right, like we're just, we got to leave. We harvested the resources. We want to get out of this fucking planet. Good luck, motherfuckers. Right? Yeah, here's a fucking story for you. There's an Adam and there's an Eve. And so, but like if you're a good person, you wouldn't want someone else bearing the suffering for your sins. Like you wouldn't want that, right? Like any spiritual person, wants to alleviate other people's sufferings, right? You feel compassion and empathy. You don't slap it on somebody else, and not even a bad person. Well, that guy's a criminal piece of shit. I'll make him bear my sins. No, the person that you think is the best person in the world ever, you think is the greatest person, the greatest life, the person you claim to love, you want that fucking guy to suffer for your sins, right? Which, again, it's impossible. It's a stupid fucking thing, but you got to be a selfish prick to even want that fucking deal. You got to be a real piece of shit to want to be able to sin and, to indulge and then fucking, not take responsibility for your actions and then, say, and then, look at these homeless pieces of shit out here. Don't give them any welfare or food stamps. They don't fucking deserve it. They should pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Yeah, but aren't you fucking sinning and making somebody else bear your sins? Oh, that's completely different. Right? No, it's worse. It's fucking way worse. People who are just, have fallen on hard times and, life has gotten the better of them and they can't hold a job and, whatever circumstances, mental illness, and they find themselves homeless and you have no compassion for them, but you want to dump your sins on Jesus. Boy, are you a piece of shit, right? Like what kind of fucking morals and ethics do you have? I mean, really think about it, right? Like, let's say God and Jesus are offering you a deal. It sounds like the kind of deal the devil would give you, right? Doesn't it sound like the kind of deal the devil would give you? Hey, yeah, you can go and be as bad as you want, and then my son will die for your sins, right? Like, wouldn't that something the devil would do? Like, I mean, everything's about accountability. Like, why would there be zero accountability for your spiritual life? You don't have to do anything. You don't have to meditate. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to work on yourself. You don't have to build your character qualities. You don't have to be a good person. You just sin as much as you want and accept this guy as your savior, who the fuck even can quantify such a thing? How do you know who really accepted him and who didn't? Like, how do they decide that, right? I mean, it's just a loophole. You'd be the fucking worst person in the world in your deathbed and you say you accept him as your Lord and Savior. Oh, good, you're in. Like, anybody fucking say words. Anybody can lie, right? Fucking, and that's just another sin. Well, hey, then take that one too, Jesus. take that lie with you too. Take that. Be responsible. It's a stupid fucking thing. But if you're raised in it, you never thought about it. Sure, but at some point you should have some sort of feel bad about it, right? Like Mel Gibson, it was his hand in the Passion of Christ, in the scene where he's hammering the spike into Jesus's arm. And he said, it's my hand, in that scene, because every one of us Christians knows that we're the ones crucifying him with our sins. And like, why the fuck would you want to be that fucking piece of shit? Well, why would you think that's a good thing to be, right? Like, why would you want, any part of that? Like, wouldn't you want some responsibility for your life and your choices? So anyways, it's a bullshit thing. And, I've pointed out here. Okay, I just got back from the chiropractor, mostly the acupuncturist, which is great. The rest of this stuff is, all right, whatever it is. All this traffic. I want to say one thing. I got a few comments to get to. So I'm watching a basketball game last night, two of them. Well, I was watching a game the night before when Trump was allegedly shot. And they cut into NBC News, cut into the fucking game. Now, the last time that's happened was in the NBA Finals between the New York Knicks and I believe the Houston Rockets, and the Rockets won that series. And it was right before I like sold my TV, and I didn't have a TV for like 10 years. And NBC cut into an O.J. Simpson, when he was driving his car, Run J O.J. Run, in the middle of the fucking game, right? And I couldn't fucking believe it, right? It was like really bad decision making. And then the other night they said they were going to go to Trump's press conference. Now, there is CBS News, ABC News, and of course everything on cable, CNN, MSNBC, MS Now, and fucking, Fox and the rest of it. And all the stuff that's online. So there's zero reason to cut away from the basketball game. It ended up being a blowout, and I'm glad I did something. I watched something else or did something else, whatever it was. So, I wasn't bummed because Denver got blown out. I checked the score later. I was like, oh, I'm glad usually I fast forward anyway when I think things are going south. But last night I was watching the good game between Orlando Magic and Detroit Pistons. Very physical game and, like old school playoff basketball. Tight series. And we were having tornado warnings. Now, there's 3 to 4 other local news channels that could, people could tune to go to the radar. But they're showing a bunch of shit, and I wish I taped it. I did tape it because it was a basketball game. But I since deleted it, right? And my wife wasn't feeling good. She took a bath, and she came downstairs, and I was complaining to her about it, like making fun of it. And I was naming some local towns that I've never heard of. And I'm like, if you know anybody in this town, tell them if they're worried about the tornado warning to turn on the fucking basketball game. My wife was cracking up. And then they showed a picture of an exit on the highway. And, in the middle of the night with pouring rain, like the rain we got, our ponds, both our ponds are completely flooded. And we got flash flood. And it was pouring down. It was like sheets of rain, right? And you couldn't see shit. And they're talking about, and they have these maps up, weather maps, that no one knows what the fuck's going on. And they have the basketball game on half the screen. And eventually they broke away from the basketball game altogether. So I had to watch it on fucking Peacock, which you can't fast forward or pause. It was just, I watched the end of the game, the last 5 minutes. But I'm like, Jesus Christ, you guys, everything's so retarded. Like, it just makes no sense to do it. People have plenty of options to get weather. Almost nobody watches their local news. More people are probably watching the basketball game, and they have like fucking YouTube channels in other places, right? You could just break in and say, they give these little fucking updates and, whatever. There's, tornado warning bullshit, and, it never happens, right? So anyways, so that was the first part. But I have a few comments here. The first comment is, I didn't pull it up. I pulled up the wrong thing here. A person says, years ago, I found a statue online that says it's completely legal for our government to use crisis actors and create propaganda and agendas if they deem it necessary. It seems like now the statute has been scrubbed from the internet. Can you find it? I think you're over. I'm assuming this person means me when he's saying you, because who else could he be talking to? But I think he's overestimating my effort, right? Like, I don't give a shit about any of this stuff, and I want to reemphasize this. I do not care about my own opinions about world events. My own opinions mean nothing to me. Your opinions mean even less. I'm not interested in hearing your opinions, unless they're funny, like your stand-up comic or whatever. But there's nothing you're going to say that interests me because, I know which way this is going. And even if it doesn't go that way, like things that are out of your control, I mean, whatever interests me is this is a show. We're watching what I call the show, right? This whole thing, all of it, all the sports and media and, whatever it might be. It's all a show. And, some of it's good. Some of it's not worth tuning into, right? There's a lot out there. There's a lot of content out there. And some of it I find entertaining and, and some of it I like to make fun of. It's entertaining because you make fun of it. And so that's, what I do here. That's all I care about in terms of the show. In terms of the solution, which is divinity within you, I talk about with some passion and, I don't know, again, it's my duty also to talk about it and it's out there and I say it and people goes in one ear and out the other. It's fine. It's whatever. But that, I don't care about it because, I like watching the apocalypse, but it's like watching like a show or a movie where you're rooting for an outcome possibly, Maybe you have some, investment in the outcome of whatever you're watching, but you have zero control over it, and your opinion doesn't matter. Your opinion about what you're seeing and your opinion about what's going to happen has no influence over what's happening. Maybe you're cheering when you're watching a game and you're sitting in the stands and you're booing or you're cheering might have an effect on the outcome of the game. Probably not, but at least you're participating in some way. But when you're sitting at home watching this fucking apocalypse unfold in front of you, you have no control over it, and nothing's going to stop it. Nothing's going to change it. We can only do our best to live through it and survive it. And I don't give a fuck about facts either. And so, can you find it? I got a chuckle, but it's unbelievable how incredibly sloppy the psyops have gotten. Yeah, that's what I was talking about the other day with leverage. We have no leverage, and so they can be completely sloppy. And so, there's that. All right, so I'm going to, wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano. I don't know why my dogs are barking. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.